You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome back to RBLR Lightning. My name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, it's Matt Gannon. Unfortunately, our number one power play guy, Joe Zamataro, is out for today's podcast. He's a little bit under the weather, so he's not with us today. Joe, get better. We'll have you back next week. But other than that, we're going to jump right into this, get and talk to some Lightning hockey. We are back this week. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday, a great Christmas. Matt, welcome into the show, my man. How was your break? How was your Christmas? How you doing?
Christmas was good. The whole week was good. I'm going to obviously omit a couple of things we're going to get into, but overall the week was very nice and pleasant. Definitely, I'm not made for this weather at all. I know Eureka's over there laughing at me, but no, I can't do this cold at all. I'm a Florida boy all the way through. How was camping, Jake? How did you manage?
I was freezing. I had like 10 layers on, so I was very cold. Listen, Christmas Day was fun, obviously, but that 29-degree weather. Listen, I'm a Florida boy just like you. This is not my kind of weather here. Hopefully all of you listeners out there, Santa brought you some new Lightning gifts to rock as well for this upcoming next year, and we'll jump right into it, start talking about some of the Lightning hockey that we had and what's upcoming here. Good news, by the way, Matt, is we don't have any injuries to talk about because we haven't had any games for the past week, so everybody should be getting healthy here and back to 100%. Any of the guys that were slightly banged up, like I know Hagel had a little bit of was out for a little bit there on the one game at the end there. He took a weird hit, but he should be able to get back to 100%. A couple of the other guys.
He was back and playing as well. I think
right.
He missed the last couple of games before these two we're going to get into here, but nice to see him back as well.
Yes, and now that the break has happened, hopefully they're back to 100%, and we should be ready to go and ready to rock and roll for these upcoming games. Let's jump into the games, though, that we got to recap, starting off with the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matt, we circled this one on our calendars and said this is another big game like we talked about earlier in the month against the Leafs, which the Lightning won that one 4-3 in overtime. And unfortunately, this one did not go the Bolts' way whatsoever. They lose this one by a final score of 4-1. The score is a little worse than maybe the game because, two of them were at the end of the game empty netters, and that's how they get the 4-1 score. But it was 2-0 for majority of the game. Toronto really controlled basically the whole thing. Andrei Vasilevsky was making saves left and right, keeping the Lightning even remotely in this game. It easily could have been 5-0 by the end of 2. Nemestikov does eventually score and gets the Lightning within 1, but they're just a little bit too late, fall a little bit short. Toronto picks up those empty netters, and that's how you get the 4-1 final. But, Matt, I think you would agree overall here, not a good game from the Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, this game was so much closer than it really deserved to be. I mean, Vasilevsky really stood on his head, but it seemed like everybody on the Lightning was very discombobulated. There's a lot of the times where I can't figure out, or I do solidly know it's like either the team is just playing really good or the Lightning are playing really bad. I have to give a lot of credit to Toronto. They were playing really good. I mean, it wasn't all offense all the time. Their defenders were giving nobody space, nobody room to work with, but it just nothing really seemed to go their way. And the Lightning, they, despite, an effort trying to get into it, trying to get a little bit of a tenacity and heart into the game, just nothing was really working. The Leafs defense was not willing to crack. And this is also a Leafs defense that is missing some top guys. They don't have Muzzin. They don't have Riley. And I want to say one other defenseman. And they're still managing to make it work and shutting down, the entire Tampa Bay Lightning, essentially. So, honestly, I do have to give credit to Toronto for a pretty, sound, well-performed game by them. But at the same time, it's also the Lightning didn't seem very interested throughout the entire game as well. we all know they cannot fool me. We all know the Lightning are not too keen on playing, games in mid-December and right before the holiday break and whatnot. We know their eyes are on the prize. They don't care about these mid-season games like Toronto might.
Yeah, there's nothing to be concerned about, I don't think, at all. I mean, the Lightning have done this before. They kind of coast into the playoffs, and as long as you turn on in the playoffs, it's no big deal. And the Lightning played well against Toronto earlier in December, so we know they have the ability to beat these guys and can play well. And, they always talk about in the playoffs, goaltender stealing game. Vassie almost did that for the Lightning in this one. He almost stole this game. Unfortunately, the offense couldn't quite tie it up to even get them into overtime. But Matt, I'll give credit to you as well. You said before these games last week, you said, listen, we're on a good streak right now. We might run into a little bit of rough patch. Don't get overly too excited. And I think that's what's kind of happened to the Lightning this week. We'll get into more what happened in the next game here in a second. But, it was a tough game. They did make it close. Vasilevsky helped us, keep it as close as it was. Unfortunately, just couldn't squeak out a win and come away with one. But I think it's more of a learning spot for the Lightning and say, hey, listen, we can't sit back at all during the regular season, especially if we want to get up in the standings and pick up a couple of points. So that's the way I look at it for that game.
And especially against somebody who you are also, trailing in the standings. I think at the time of the game, they were only 3 points back in the standings with the game in hand as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was an opportunity to, and again, with the Detroit game, if the fortune swung in the Lightning favor, they could have been second in the division after these two games, but unfortunately, it didn't go their way. I would have liked to see a little bit more effort out of them against these two teams, but again, I mean, I'm not going to fool you or myself. They just don't necessarily care about these midseason games. And it's not even abundantly clear to Lightning fans. It's clear to everybody in the league. There's a reason why they are the gold standard for what a successful team looks like, is because they know how to win. They know when to put it on, and mid-season is just not really the time for it. Everybody knows. We saw it in 2021. They were not the greatest team in the league. I think they ended up second or maybe even third in the division. They didn't squeak into the playoffs, but they just kind of meandered in a little bit. They weren't playing bad or anything.
They coasted into the postseason.
They coasted in, and as soon as game one started, boom, we're hot, we're ready, we're rolling.
And that's the way it's been since 2019, when they went all out all regular season, tied the record for most wins, broke countless franchise records, got swept in the first round. After that, we kind of saw them coast in there, and I think they've been in like third or second place every time in the division, and they've gone to 3 straight finals, winning 2 of them. So it's worked out well for the Lightning. Obviously, you want to win every game. You want to be up there in the standings to get those home ice advantages, but as long as they're ready to go in the playoffs, that's the most important thing. And this is kind of just a reality check for the Lightning.
This is also very on brand for the Leafs as well, very on schedule for the Leafs as well. For not only just this year, but the previous 2 seasons, they've had white hot Novembers going into Decembers, and then they also, I think, unintentionally kind of coast off into the playoffs. They reel off a little bit, not with the same intent as the Lightning. I don't want to sound too hubris and above the Toronto Maple Leafs saying that, but they have these crazy
You can say it. It's
streaks.
Okay.
They have these crazy streaks in November and December, and I think we just kind of fell into the tornado that was the November, December Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and credit to Toronto. They did play a good game, and the Lightning did not. And Toronto capitalized off of that. Let's go into the Detroit game in a little more detail here as well. So for those of you who may not know, the final of that game was 7-4. So a little more offense for the Lightning this time, but kind of a similar story in that Detroit really felt like they controlled a lot of this game. It was a pretty back and forth battle in the first. And then the second period, both teams picking up a goal. Third period, it was all Detroit from there. They also pick up some empty netters as well to kind of inflate the score to give them that 7-4 victory. But, again, the Lightning just they get off to a good start, and they look like they're going to be all right, but they're just kind of playing a little bit behind. And you know what, Matt? I attribute it to Derek Lalonde. You know, I said when he first left, I'm like, I'm going to miss that guy. I love him. I wish him nothing but the best in Detroit. And I think he's found some success, and he's showing the Lightning like, hey, I still got it. And so I give Derek Lalonde a lot of credit. I think he's done really well with the Red Wings this year, and he's got us 0-2 against the Red Wings so far.
Yeah, and the one criticism that I would hear from Wings fans throughout Jeff Blashill's entire tenure there was that, and especially it became more apparent towards the end of his tenure there, was that when they hit ruts, they could not find their way out of it. And Detroit, they've not been a contender this year. I would very much struggle to call them a contender this year. I don't even know if they're sitting in a playoff spot. I don't think they are right now, but they're not going through these long, deep droughts that they used to be. I think Derek Lalonde and the staff that he has there with him have been able to, rejuvenate, put a little bit of life into the team, and not get so hung up on themselves, kind of motivate and find a way to get his team to perform up to par and maybe even punch above their weight class a little bit, it seemed like they did here twice now. I will say that the first game we played against them, we got Husso'd. We got goalied. It still wasn't the best effort from the Lightning, but that's kind of what you can chalk it up to, is we got goalied. But I appreciate you giving, whether it be sort of tongue in cheek, we still have to appreciate Derek Lalonde's effort with Detroit. He has injected a lot of life into their team and just given them a whole different point of view. So, but throughout this game, everybody kind of had the better of us. And again, I'll be the last guy. I hate being the standard, blind hockey guy that just wants to blame the goaltender. And when's the last time you heard me blame the goaltender for a loss? And I'm still not going to, but I'm going to chalk it up to Brian Elliott. I hate to say that he let the team down, but it was not his strongest performance. He seemed very shaky throughout the back half of the game. I mean, the one time when he went to go play the puck and it ended up passing it right to the Red Wings forechecker there. I mean, it's reminiscent of him early last year, where I just didn't want him really playing the puck, and it seemed to bite him. But I'm not in the party of strap him in and fire him out of a cannon. I think he just had a bad game. Every goalie has a bad game. Like I was saying last week, it is not going to be sunshine and rainbows every single game. So I'm not going to, pin this on him or whatever. I just think Brian Elliott had a bad game. We just couldn't overcome a pretty offensive Detroit team.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm curious about this. So Brian Elliott, he's been fantastic for the Lightning. He was 7-1 coming into this game before against Detroit. I thought up until he did make two big mistakes, like the one trying to play the puck where they gave up that freebie, basically. I thought he was playing decent. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was making a couple of big saves here and there, and the Lightning weren't helping him by any means. It definitely wasn't his best performance, but I wasn't as maybe on quick to blame Elliott. Maybe that's maybe the right way to put it, but I didn't think he was that bad. I mean, there were the last two goals there that didn't help his case whatsoever. But, and again, even you kind of mentioned this, overall, it's one bad game. He's still 7-2 record on the season. I still think he's played really well overall, and the whole team was just playing bad this week, so I don't put too much emphasis on Brian Elliott personally. What do you think about that, Matt?
Well, I mean, if I can give you the spark notes of the two games, if I was just describing it to somebody who didn't watch, it was that the Lightning in the Toronto game, the forwards and defense were not there. Meanwhile, goaltending was there. In the Detroit game, the forwards was there, the offense was there, the defense was not helping out Brian Elliott whatsoever, and I'm the last guy on earth to blame a loss on a goaltender, and I'm not going to do that here. But he wasn't Vasilevsky. I mean, that's pretty tough competition to live up to. But I still think that we all know that goaltenders, especially, but hockey players, but goaltenders especially, are their own worst critic. And we all know Brian Elliott's he's not happy about that game whatsoever. Vasilevsky, if he lets in a single goal in a game, he's not happy about that whatsoever. So, again, I wouldn't read too much into it. I just think it was a mid-December game, and he was wanting to go see some Christmas lights and get out of this road trip early. So,
He's ready for Santa to come to town and get lightning gifts. Yeah, it was a bad game for him, no question about it. But overall, Elliott's been good. I thought he was fine up until that last couple of minutes there where he let up some of those bad goals. So chalk it up to a tough game. Hopefully he bounces back in a big way and can continue to do what he did for the Lightning on that 7-game winning streak that he had. And just overall, even that one loss he had, he still played decent, I remember. So hopefully that continues for him going into the new year as we get set for that. So let's jump into the 3 stars of the week, Matt. It's one of our favorite segments that we have here on the RBLR Lightning podcast, but a little bit of a weird week here, Matt. So I'm actually going to start from the top and go back down. So we're going to start with our number 1 star of the week, and that is going to go to none other than Andrei Vasilevskiy. And he only had the 1 game this week, but he was actually, you know what? Before we even get into this, I should mention too quickly the Buffalo game. We were supposed to play Buffalo on Friday after the Detroit game. That game got postponed and will be made up at a later date. But because of the storm, the NHL didn't want to send the Lightning to Buffalo. They could have played the game maybe, but a huge snowstorm rolled through. They wouldn't have been able to get out. They would have got stuck in there. It would have been a mess. So that is the reason for the Buffalo game getting canceled. So that's why Vasilevskiy only played 1 game this week, but he still gets the number 1 star, Matt, because he played fantastic in that Toronto game.
Yeah, he was the only one that seemed like he showed up in that game. Let me give you a number here, and I want to see if you know what it is. 30-9. Do you know what that signifies?
30-9. I'm going to guess that is the you know what? I have no idea. I was thinking shots, but he didn't let in 9 goals. So
you're correct. It was the shot. It was the shot differential. By the time the Lightning got their first goal on their 10th shot from Nemesnikov, it was 30-9 shots, and it was an even worse percentage earlier in that game, but that was just the one that stuck out to me. It was 30-9, 30-10 if you really want by the time the first goal came. But that is 3 times the amount of shots we have. And I know shots aren't everything. For a long time, it seemed like the Lightning, they would get outshot in games, but still manage to win the game, 5-2 or something like that. Because it seems like they make their shots count. Regardless, I'm going on a ramble here. There's not much I can really say about Vasilevskiy, but he had some really crucial stops. There were only 2 goals scored against him at even strength, or not even strength. One of those goals was a power play goal from Austin Matthews, but throughout the entire game, yeah, he was fantastic. He stopped, I think it was Michael Bunting on a breakaway. There's really not a lot you can say about it. So he was just fantastic throughout the entire game. There's not many more words in the dictionary I can use to describe Vasilevskiy, but he really stood out on a team where nobody else did that night.
When people on Twitter are tweeting Andrei Vasilevskiy, and that's it, that's the tweet, that he is doing amazing things. Like that's what people were doing. They were like, oh my Vasilevskiy, or something, like some kind of play on words of them like, holy cow, what did he just do? That's what he was doing in that Toronto game. And that's what kept him in it, because he mentioned 30-9. When you put 30 shots on goal, you expect to get more than 2 goals. And I believe it was 2-0 by that point. But, I mean, this game could have easily, like I said, been 6-0. But Vasilevskiy made so many unbelievable saves. So he was an easy number 1 star pick for us.
And he really is starting to, I don't want to say revert to form, but he is becoming Vasilevskiy again. He did not have the greatest start to the season, and he didn't have a great season by his standards last year, even though he still put up like a 918 or something. Save percentage in the league is plummeting like a rock in water. It is dropping for everybody. Meanwhile, it's rising. His goals against average is dropping. So he really is starting to, be himself again, pick up where he left off in the playoffs like an unstoppable god.
All right, that's the Vasilevskiy we know, and that's the Vasilevskiy we need. He has been on a roll, and he is more than deserving of our number 1 star for the week. Let's go to the number 2 star, though, which we are going to be giving to Braden Point. And, Matt, I thought Point, was decent. He had a couple of, I should say he's decent. He played well. I mean, this is a guy who's on the ice. He is flying all over the place. He's got such unbelievable speed. He's able to create so many chances. He does have a goal this week as well. It was a really nice one. Again, it seems like every time he scores, it's a very beautiful goal. But he was great, and he gets the number 2 star of the week.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's motor was running a little bit cold this week, except Braden Points. He's the only forward I can say that really stuck out to me. Again, I know I've been rather critical so far this episode, and I'm not going to be pointing fingers at anybody except Brian Elliott, apparently. But I'm not going to be pointing fingers at anybody. But if there's somebody that has stood out to me in the 12 forwards that we've played, it's been Braden Point. And yeah, even if he didn't score that goal, I still would think that he was the one guy that seemed to be kind of, I don't know, trying to drag everybody along. Again, to me, it was a big lack of effort throughout both of these games so far, but I don't think Braden Point really took a shift off. And I can, give credit to a couple of the other forwards or whatever, but he was really the only one that stuck out to me.
I 100% agree with you, because if you look here on social media at our graphic, we did not give a 3rd star to anybody on the Lightning team because, man, I don't think anybody really deserved it. The whole team in general just didn't have a great week. And, I don't think anybody really jumped off the page. Point did well, and he just seemed like he was, moving at a quick pace. He also scored a goal. The only guy I would sit there and say maybe you could give the 3rd star to is Nikita Kucherov. He did have 2 points in the Detroit game, and he's always a guy that is, just such good hockey IQ that he could always be on that list. But it was tough to give a 3rd star to anybody because it was just a rough week for the Lightning overall. And I'll tell you what, Matt, we'll go to our viewers on this one. Let us know, follow us on social media at RBLR Sports. If you guys have a 3rd star that you think we should have put in there, let us know who you think deserves that spot, because we would love to hear from you guys. But Matt, your thoughts on not giving a 3rd star out this week?
Until the fans come up with a consensus 3rd star, for the time being, the fans are the 3rd star. That's my tire pump for the episode. But
I love it.
No, I mean, I don't know. Like Cooch, he did play good, but we know this all too well when Cooch is not playing his best, but he still produces. The goal he scored, even though it was a 6-on-5 goal, it was still a pretty nice goal. He's got one of the best wrist shots in the league. Brian Engblom really harps on this. He hides his shot very well, but this shot, I had no idea it was coming. Like, a lot of the time, you can kind of tell. We watch these guys at the very least 82 games a season. I had no idea this one was coming off of his stick at all. But I still think that it was lazy Cooch these 2 games, and I know he's probably upset with his play over the last 2 games. I mean, unless he gets. Even if he gets 5 or 6 points a game or something,
he's still mad.
He's still mad. He's the grumpiest player in the league. So I think it's perfectly acceptable that we can omit the 3rd star this week. I mean, when you have a standard as high as the Thunder Nation does, I think it's fair that you can leave somebody out for a week.
Thunder Nation. I like that. The Thunder Nation. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one before.
Be the Thunder, baby.
Listen, we've been a little cold towards the Lightning team in general, but you know what? If you guys need to warm up and get some fire new RBLR Lightning merch, don't forget to head over to shop.rblrsports.com. We got some hoodies out there as well for this cold weather that's going on right now, although it is going to warm up this weekend. So be sure to head over there to shop.rblrsports.com and check out the awesome merch we have for you guys. You can use code BOLTS for 10% off of your order. There's also not only just Lightning merch, but Bucks, Rays, Rowdy's themed merch as well. So be sure to go check it out and just go over there and use code BOLTS for 10% off your order. Matt,
get me every single time, Jake. Every single time.
It's my favorite part of the show. There's still little segues we can throw in there. With that said, though, let's start looking ahead at what we have coming up here for the new year, because it's going to be the new year. It's 2023. We're getting ready to start things off for the Lightning. They actually have a couple of games before we officially ring in the new year. But, Matt, I do want to ask you this. I want to see if you have anything. So since by the next time we talk, it's going to be 2023, do you have any top moments from the Lightning in 2022? I won't make
And
you
the
do a top
calendar.
10 little entire list, but if you had to pick a couple moments, what are your favorite moments for the Lightning this year in 2022?
Okay, you know what? I like this, Jake. I like this. I'll tell you. I'll give you three. All right. So number three, and I know you're gonna appreciate this, is the two, I think maybe three games. I know all of them were losses. Were when Rick Peckham came back because Dave Randorf fell down with the illness. Dave Randorf came back, or not Dave Randorf. Rick Peckham came back and called a couple of games. I thought that was super cool. And I think two of them may have been 2021, but I know one of them was on New Year's Eve, so I'm gonna count that one. That one counts.
It counts.
I remember it. It was very, very nice. I loved listening to Rick again. So that was one of them.
That's a good one.
I mean, the second one's got to be. I mean, Game 7 against the Maple Leafs. I mean, what's better than that? I mean, it's a tradition as old as time, beating the Leafs, and you know who else but Oshawa native Nick Paul taking down his childhood team. That was great. And oh man, you know the third one, the number one. I don't know. It could be the sweep of the Panthers. It could be the other tradition as old as time, which is the Lightning ending a New York team season, whether it be the Islanders or the Rangers. But I don't know. If there's one, I'll give you a play that really stuck out to me, but it was the Andre Palat to Nikita Kucherov to back to Andre Palat goal against the Avalanche. I think it was game 2. It was a beautiful passing play where they just completely danced around Cale Makar. I guess it's not in any particular order, but I guess chronological order. So that is what I will give you. Jake, I'd love to hear yours.
I like it. I like it a lot, Matt. So for me, my three, probably going to have to go. One for me is the Stadium Series, just that whole thing in general, because listen, it was huge for the Lightning as an organization. It was a lot of fun to be at. I know I got to go, so it was an amazing experience. So that's definitely one that's on there for me. Andre Vasilevsky's 2 huge saves against Chicago. I think that's one that's on there for me because there were 2 unbelievable saves that he made last year against Chicago. And then number one, and I wouldn't put these in any particular order, but another top moment for me this year, I would probably have to be Nikita Kucherov's last second goal against the Florida Panthers. That were not wasn't Kucherov's goal, it was assist. Sorry, it was Ross Colton's goal. But that moment,
it might as well be Kucherov's goal. I mean,
right, exactly. Just seeing the disappointment on Florida Panthers fans' face, it kind of made my year. So I got to go with that one right there. Those are probably my top 3. And by the way, a little bit of shameless plug, but the Bolt Report is doing a top 12 list as we count down the new year. So if you want to go check out our list as well, be over there, check that out. But of course, we'd love to hear from you guys as well on what your top moments this year as well. Matt, fun trivia for you. Do you know what the Lightning's most liked tweet is of all time?
I've got a feeling, and I
think I know what you're going to guess here.
We're sorry, we don't have any words, and we know you don't want to hear them.
I'm going to stop you right there. That's not it, thankfully.
I bet you that's the most quote tweeted one.
That's probably true. That's actually this, and I only know this because I was looking up what the most liked tweets were for this year to see if there are any big moments. But that's actually the second most liked tweet. Our most liked tweet is a quote tweet. And now we're going to have to go back a little bit because unfortunately, if you go look on this on Twitter, the tweet has been deleted. But do you remember when the Chargers came out with a new logo and it was the LA with the lightning bolt? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And everybody hated it, which is why the tweet was eventually deleted. But everybody was talking about how it kind of looked like a crossover between the Lightning and the Dodgers. And the Lightning quote tweeted it and talked about it a little bit there. And that tweet, guess how many likes that tweet got?
Oh, God. Oh, dude, I don't even know. Hit me.
74,000 likes for a quote tweet, which I thought was hilarious. I thought that was a little bit of fun trivia I had to throw out there for the viewers as well.
That's brutal. You know what? I'm glad I was just at least in the ballpark. I'm glad I got number 2 right.
Yeah, that is our most liked tweet of all time. So a fun fact for you there. As
That's
now,
great.
let's jump into getting into what's coming up these next week, I should say, for the Lightning. We got 3 games before we come back next year. First one is going to be against the Montreal Canadiens. That's coming up on Wednesday, and this is a 3-game homestand, if you will. And then back-to-back, Lightning will be taking on the New York Rangers at 7 p.m. Eastern at Amalie Arena. And then on Saturday, we welcome the Arizona Coyotes into town. So it'll be a nice little break for the Coyotes to play in a real arena. I'm sure they're getting sick of playing at a college arena. I had to throw a little bit of a dig at them there as well. But 3 games coming up for the Lightning. 2 probably more bigger ones, I would say, is Montreal versus New York. Arizona is just, they had a rough year all year for the last couple of years now. But Matt, I want to ask you this because this is the most interesting thing to me. So you got Montreal, New York. Montreal is a division opponent, but probably quote unquote the weaker one. And then you have New York, who is one of the better teams in the NHL. Who do you play Andre Vasilevsky against?
Oh, I play him against the Rangers, man. I mean, playing a goalie 2 straight games on a back-to-back is as rare as a unicorn nowadays. Even if you have prime Dominik Hasek in net and you're trying to squeak into the playoffs, you still don't do that. You'd never see that. So I have to imagine that this is going to be the week of redemption for Brian Elliott. I have to imagine that he is going to, and the Canadians, they're not like last year. They're a chippy team. They'll hit you. They'll score. They can't necessarily defend too much, but I think Brian Elliott, he's going to get the first start against Montreal. He's going to get that start. Vasilevsky is going to play against the Rangers, even though they've had a kind of so-so season so far. I think they're 7-1 over their last 8 games or so, something like that. They've really turned it on recently. And then against the real question is against the Coyotes. To me, I think it's Elliott, Vazzy, and then against the Coyotes, because I know of course, if they had their pick of the litter, each and every game, then if rest wasn't an issue, they'd start Vasilevsky every single game. But the Coyotes, they're not as bad as everybody thought they were. They're definitely an overachieving team this year. I think they're within a stone's throw of a playoff spot in the West somehow. That's the real question to me: is who do you see starting that? First of all, let me get your opinion on the first 2 games. Who gets those starts? But against the Coyotes, that's the one I'm very curious about.
Arizona, by the way, they're more than a stone's throw away for the playoffs. They're at 27 points. The wild card's 39. So not
okay.
I mean, they could still get there theoretically, but you are right, though. Listen, it's the NHL. Any team can win. Doesn't matter if you're playing the worst team in the league or not. Personally, I think you're right. I think they more than likely go with Elliott against Montreal and then Vassy against New York. But I wouldn't hate, and I don't think it's a crazy idea for the Lightning to start Vasilevsky against Montreal, and then you put Elliott against New York. I know Elliott had a rough game the last time he was out, but overall he's played well this season. And my reasoning simply is divisional matchups. The Atlantic's pretty decent this year. I think the division matchups are so important that you play Vassy against Montreal. He's really, really good against Montreal as well. And you play Elliott against New York because it's a non-division game. You really can't go wrong, though, as well, because both these goaltenders have played so well for the Lightning this year. More than likely, they play Vasilevsky against the Rangers, but I would not be surprised and wouldn't hate the Lightning playing Vassy against Montreal and then putting Elliott in against New York, kind of giving him a tough test, giving him that. I mean, how great of a redemption arc would that be, by the way, Matt? Throwing in Elliott against New York and him taking them down. That would be fantastic.
Storylines, baby.
Exactly. As for the Arizona game, though, I think that's Vasilevsky's game, absolutely. I would be surprised to see Elliott go in that one just because Vassy plays majority of the games. Elliott just played in a back-to-back. I would expect Vasilevsky to come in the game against Arizona. By the way, if you're planning on going to any of these games, the Arizona one's the one to go to. Ticket prices are very high for the New York-Montreal game, so expect a lot of Rangers and Montreal fans. I guess it's the Christmas holiday right now. Everybody's down here, and those original 16s, everybody's setting the prices pretty high. But the game against New York,
snowbird season, man.
Yeah, I know it's tough for the real Lightning fans that are down here wanting to go to the games. But the game against New York is a reverse retro night as well. So that will be a fun one. The Lightning have played pretty good in those jerseys. So that could be a big one. And that'll be a fun game, of course, against New York, as I think the Lightning will be looking for a little bit of revenge as they lost to the Rangers in the first game of the season.
Oh yeah, I'm looking for revenge too. But the last time I was looking for a revenge game, i.e., this Detroit game, it didn't go so well in my favor. But I think I've earned enough good karma over the week. I've got a good feeling about this one. So, and again, it's the Rangers lose, America wins. At least that's how I see it in my book. No, so these are all going to be very important games. At least these first two. I mean, there's no such thing as a game that is not important, but we can, if we're gonna rank the three, Arizona's kind of at the bottom there. Of course, divisional opponents, but to me, I think the one to watch out for is that Rangers game. Wild cards. Not that it's impossible for the Canadians to make the playoffs. I mean, they're, I guess, closer than the Coyotes are to making the playoffs, but still, that's the one that I'm most concerned about. That, to me, that's got the most future implications behind it.
You're right, because that's another big playoff matchup potentially. So that is definitely the one to have your eyes on, and the reason more than likely Vasilevsky plays against the New York Rangers. But only time will tell. One last thing we'll do here, Matt, before we wrap things up, since we are coming up on the new year, everybody always likes to do their New Year's resolutions. So let's do a New Year's resolution for the Lightning. What is the one thing you'd like to see the Lightning fix in 2023?
Do you really have to ask me, Jake? You know the answer.
Oh, I know the answer. I know where you're going with this one.
I'm going to shock everybody and say no more shorthanded goals. That they're completely gone. They're not happening in 2023. That is. Trust me. I've already spoken to John Cooper and JBB about it. They know. No, that's the one thing I want to see again. Despite this being a very pessimistic's not the right word, but critical episode, I think just no more shorties, man. That's all I can really ask for, because their game, we know how well-rounded they are. There's not, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is the way I'm looking at it. Jake, how about yourself?
Listen, I hate to agree with you, but I'm pretty much right in the same boat, because what I mean by hate to agree with you, I don't want to do the same thing, because that's boring content here. We really like to give out good content here on the RBLR podcast, but I kind of have to agree with you, Matt, because most of my complaints have been taken away. I was talking about Hagel on power play number 1. He's there. I was, a lot of things I was complaining about have been fixed, and the shorthanded goals is probably the number one thing. One thing I will say is here, I got a fun one for you. Listen, the Lightning got rid of their third jerseys. They're no longer wearing Disrupt the Night jerseys, which kind of came out of the blue and out of the nowhere. So here's my 2023 New Year's resolution. Replace the third jerseys, the black third jerseys, with the reverse retro 1.0s. Bring them back for another game. Let's get them back in the building. Those are some of my favorite jerseys. That's my 2023 New Year's resolution.
I refuse to argue that, Jake. I think that's brilliant.
It would be great. Come on, everybody loves those jerseys. It'd be a great third jersey.
Yeah.
It would be fantastic for the team. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I don't think they'll ever do it, but hey, one man can dream. So
I think they're just probably going to wait until the Adidas partnership drops and then probably come out with something next year. So
that is definitely the possibility. Our producer Eureka just threw in lime green in the chat. I don't know where that one came out of.
The Dallas Lightning.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of that, I have to throw this out there now. The Lightning changed their logo for the Christmas holiday season to that nice light baby blue, kind of like a Rays blue. That would make a sweet jersey, man. I would love to see that color in a Lightning uniform. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I like I was just saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I would not necessarily be opposed to a primary jersey change. I really wouldn't. I think it's way too similar to Toronto's, and Toronto had it first. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but at the same time, we've got a winning formula with these jerseys. Might as well not tamper with anything. I'm just saying, if something like that happened, I wouldn't. I'd maybe find a reason to complain, but I wouldn't complain a whole lot.
I will give a shout out to the graphic team too as well, because they've been coming up with some fantastic graphics all for the last couple of years. Personally, I think they've done a fantastic job. So shout out to them. The artwork they've been coming up with recently, especially this year, has been really, really good. So shout out to them. But guys, that's going to do it for us in this episode. We really appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to us. If you can do us a big favor, hit that subscribe button, give us that 5-star rating, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening to. We really appreciate it. It really helps us out. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Sports as well, so you don't miss out on future podcasts and other podcasts as well. Like the Bucks, the Rays, the Rowdies, those guys are doing some fantastic work. So be sure to go check them out and show them some love as well. And guys, we will see you next year. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.